Hey everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. It is Sunday, which is my chat video. Now last week on my Sunday, I baked some bread while I was talking, and I really need to bake some English muffins, so I thought that we'd do that again. It just makes sense to try and do that. So I'm going to set you up so that I can put you down while I'm doing this and chat to you while I'm getting it done. And update you on the week. So let me find another pot. Eventually I'll have a proper setup, one day. It's a long time coming. So yes, it is Sunday. People have been sending me questions and stuff, checking in on me in regards to the cyclone. Now, we haven't had anything from the cyclone so far, a tiny drizzle of rain, but this morning it's really overcast and quite windy, so we might be getting it today. So we'll see, but so I want to get this done this morning. So the plan for today is to get a big batch of English muffins cooked, which I've been going to do, and one of the pork roasts ground up into sausage patties, and then that way that is easy food because the kitchen leaks. I did get asked the other day about keeping rain out of the kitchen. It's another one of those things that we don't. We do. There is a roof, and the tin roof starts not far from this temporary roof, but there is always ingress of water. Some of this leaks because there's holes in it because it needs to be replaced, which we've got the supplies to do, we just haven't done it yet. So some of this leaks, so we have containers that catch water. We put covers over things like the Thermomix, unplug stuff and all that sort of thing, and just cross our fingers, basically. So there will be water in the kitchen and the floors always get really wet, so I try not to cook out here if I can avoid it, but when it's raining, but sometimes it's just the way it is and how it has to be. But if I can do simple food, all to the better. So if I get these English muffins mixed up and then I get the pork cooked into sausage patties and cook a bunch of sausage patties off, it means that we just need to fry a couple of eggs, heat sausage patties, and we can have bacon, sausage and egg McMuffin type things, and that will work well. Let me find my book so that I can get my English muffin recipe and get started on that. So this week, what else did I need to update? I need to update you on the cats. I will get some footage of those, but the cats are doing really well. So the youngest rescue kitten was only probably only 8 or 9 weeks old, and she's settling in really well. She comes out of the cage, gets snuggles all the time, and she's rooming in with Sinatra, who was the one that we purchased. And the other two are in separate housing, but they play together through the cages. They still get a bit hissy, still get a little bit defensive, but we can pet them and things like that. So at the moment, we're just trying to get them to the point where they're handleable so that we can take them to be desexed before we start letting them out. So that's the process at the moment, but I will show you some footage of them. They're all doing really well. Sinatra did have an abscess on his neck a couple of weeks ago and had to go to the vet, and we had to get it lanced and antibiotics, and it actually regrew. So he went back again last week to get it relanced and scraped out and more antibiotics, but they're thinking there might be some sort of a calcification or something in there that's causing it, which means that he'll need surgery, which we'll do when we get him desexed. They'll have a bit of an explore when they get desexed in because he's already got to be under anaesthetic and stuff for that. So it'll be a bit cheaper and a bit easier to do it that way. So we'll see. Let me go grab some supplies. I haven't heard from Mum yet this morning, but I did hear from her yesterday. I had sent her a little care package, some of her favourite chips and some peanut butter and some roasted nuts and some protein bars and things like that, just as little extras to have while she was stuck at home. And she was complaining yesterday that it had barely even rained and she'd finished all her snacks. So it wasn't doing much yesterday for her, but I haven't spoken to her this morning yet, so I'll leave that to, she tends to sleep in a little bit on weekends, so I tend not to harass her too much too early. I will call her a bit later and check on her, but she always has my aunt's place to go to if she really needs to go somewhere. So that's fine. So yeah, we look like we might get some rain today, which would be nice. We could do with some in the tanks. Darryl went up and he cleaned all the gutters the other day because we knew that we were potentially expecting rain, to make sure that as much water that comes down on the roof will go into the tanks. So cleaned all the gutters out and things like that. We still are missing some guttering on the new building, which is a bit unfortunate, but we just haven't got it installed yet. But we also don't have a tank to catch it yet. So we're still working on that. But other than that, yeah, he went up and cleaned all the gutters so that hopefully any rain that we do get will make it into the tanks. That's the hope anyway. All right, just adding the flour to this first batch. I'm going to do 2. It's a bit of a cooler morning. I've used slightly warmed water. Hopefully I can get the first batch, hopefully I can get it proofed quick enough to get it done, but we'll manage regardless. And then I need my dough hook. Only the twins are home at the moment. They're doing drawing, I think, at the moment. And everyone else went to church this morning. They headed in early to help open up, and because Darryl wasn't sure if the person who's supposed to be running the service this morning was going to make it with the weather, so he prepped himself in case he needs to run the service as well. The wind's really starting to pick up, so hopefully we get this done. I don't know how loud the KitchenAid is on this. Even if I don't get the sausage patties done, I can pull some bacon out of the freezer or whatever. So just having this batch of bread will make it easier on us with the kids today. And it gives them lunch when they get back from church as well. So, all right, it's come together. I don't worry about it being excessively smooth. I find that it's really not that necessary. We want it well brought together, start to climb I'm pretty sure I've got my English muffin recipe up on the website as well. But yeah, bring it all together, rough sort of a dough, but well combined. All the flour, no dry flour bits, but I don't worry about it being excessively smooth. And then I'm going to stick it in my Canberra container from Susan, which I love these containers. They are amazing, and she sent me a couple of different sized ones the other day too, so thank you very much, Susan, much appreciated. So I'm just going to lightly oil that, and then you can't even see what I'm doing because I've got you up at head height, of course, but this is the dough that I'm working with. It's a fairly sticky dough, my English muffin dough. And of course, remember too that I couldn't get baking flour, baker's flour, bread flour at Costco. So we're using plain flour, which sometimes makes it a bit different because it absorbs liquid a little bit differently to baking flour. So sometimes you need to bump the flour, drop the liquid, whatever. This is still fine. It's not overly tacky, so I'm happy with that as is. So I'm going to make a second batch up as well. May as well do a big batch all at once, I find. If I'm going to be doing it, I just find it easier to do it in bulk. Only do it once. English muffins reheat really, really well too, which makes it a good thing to do in bulk. So I'll show you what I'm doing this time since I have my thing. I've got warm water from the kettle and coconut cream up to 800. And then we've got about 20 grams of yeast. We've got about 20 grams of salt. We've got 80 grams of olive oil or butter. And then we've got a bit of sugar as well. It's 20 to 40 grams of sugar. You just want enough to help that yeast to go quicker because we're doing this all as quick rise. And then we just want 1100 grams of flour. And we'll bring that all together. Again, in the KitchenAid. And we just do it on low for a little bit until it needs it, and then kick it up to the next number until it's done. And there we go, it's all come together, climbing the the dough hook, and it's slightly tacky but not overly sticky, which is what we want. So I'm just going to stick this second batch in. The pilot's going in the oven. I may stick the container in the oven because it is a little bit cooler out. It's not cold, but it's definitely cooler, and because those tins of coconut cream were cooler, then the water wasn't as warm that was once the liquid's in there. So and because I just want to get this done this morning fairly quickly, it might be worth me just dumping it, putting the container in the gas oven with the pilot light going, because it's a little bit warmer in there. It's amazing how much that tiny little flame running in the oven warms up such a space. I find it really surprising sometimes when I open it and I sit there and I go, man, it's warm in here considering nothing's on. So that's my double batch of dough. Ends up about 3-ish litres, 3-ish quarts. So we want it to double up to almost the 6. So I'll put the lid on that and I'll get that in there, just in the warmer environment. I do have my that container there with the front lid has a heat mat and stuff in it, which is what I normally use to proof dough in winter, but it's not set up at the moment because I haven't needed to use it. It's where I store cooked bread as well at the moment to keep it away from any sort of rodents or anything like that, that when I don't want to put it in a fridge or freezer or anything, because I don't really like storing bread in fridges or freezers unless I have to. But initially that's only 2-day go bread or whatever, so that's left in there. There's a couple of baguettes left in there. So any sort of buns and bread rolls and loaves of bread and stuff I store in that Kmart container with the front opening thing, but it also has the ability to have a heat mat and a rack in there for proofing dough in winter. I do need to rearrange this space though, because my vacuum sealer is currently shoved behind it because I needed to have power running to the heat mat, and that's where the power was. Still, one day. But let me find a lid for this so that I can get it proofing. What else did we need to cover in today's chat? I can't think of anything else I've been asked lately. I don't know if people will notice, but Sonnet is our resident hairdresser here, and she loves to cut the boys' hair. She puts, Orpheus likes to have mohawks, and Apollo and Kavik generally just get clippered. Lorcan likes his long, but Sonnet is the one who normally cuts all their hair. She really enjoys it. And I was commenting that I needed to cut the ends off my hair because I'm trying to grow it back in a bit thicker because it had thinned out. And she really wanted to do it, and that's fine. I have curly hair, so you don't have to cut anything particularly straight and you don't have to be particularly precise. But I think she got a little overzealous. It has ended up a lot shorter than I expected, but that's fine. It'll grow back and it's just hair. But yeah, and I can still pull it up, and that's the main thing. I keep my hair long basically because it's easier to look after long, which sounds counterintuitive, but for me, rather than trying to style short hair or keep it neat and tidy, having it long means that I can just tie it up in a messy bun, and then it's done and dusted and easy. And when I get to wear it down, I enjoy wearing it down. So anyway, it's ended up quite a bit shorter than it was, but that's life. What else has happened this week? I don't think a whole lot. It's just been normal day to day. I need to take you out and show you Lamington actually too, because I keep on forgetting to do that on these chat videos. We've been doing a lot of D&D work, working out our schedules for that. Daryl and I have different aspects of the work that we do each. So for people who are listening for the first time, we do conversions for Dungeons and Dragons. So D&D is always difficult to explain it. I've always known what D&D was because I've played it since I was a teenager, but it is adventures run by dice. So it's like a choose your own adventure, but you use dice to do it, and someone creates an adventure and you travel through making decisions and dice rolls and things like that. And they come in, or when I was a teenager, it was all done in books and table maps and things like that. And as technology has progressed and as people have wanted to play with other people who aren't, in the same room, then these virtual tabletop systems were designed, and there's quite a few of them now. And Darryl started converting the books into these virtual tabletops years ago now, and taught himself everything he knew and got really good at it, really fast at it, really accomplished at it, very creative with it and things like that, and started getting a whole lot more work. So when he started getting more work, I started helping out with certain aspects of it. Because I don't play consistently, I don't know a lot of the mechanics of the game, and he handles a lot of that. But I'm really good at things like data entry, or making things look pretty. So I do a lot of that. So we have a bunch of jobs going at the moment. I think we worked out we've got 10 ongoing jobs between now and the end of June. Some range from 15 hours worth of work through to 60 hours of work. It really depends on the size of the book that we're converting, which platform we're converting it in, and things like that. And some of them we convert into multiple platforms because people like to play on different platforms. So we do Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, Shard, Foundry, and I've probably missed one because that would just be like me, but a bunch of different platforms. And Darryl does most of the conversations with everyone and gets the work, and then I just do some behind the scenes sort of stuff that is easier and quicker for me to do. So we've got that loaded up at the moment, and we've got a few jobs really ongoing, so we've been doing a lot of that. So whilst I've been doing some cooking days, I have been spending a lot of time in front of the computer just getting through some work. The jobs are only ever paid on completion, so we have to complete it before we get paid, and some of them are percentage based as well. So we do the work and we only get paid a percentage of sales and things like that. But it's great. It gives us another thing that we can do from home. So my transcription typing sort of dried up a while back. People who've been around will remember that. I used to type for 3 or 4 different advisors, and I now only type for one. And sometimes I get a whole lot of work from her, and sometimes I get none. So that one, that was something that sort of isn't particularly reliable anymore, whereas the D&D work has become the new admin that's reliable, and YouTube is something that I'm trying to build, and the blog's something that I'm trying to build, and we're getting there. The shop is so neglected. It's still all Christmas-fied. I just have not managed to get in, and well, I don't have the space. I really need to re-photograph all the stuff without the Christmas themes to it. But my little table where I originally did all the photography is just completely covered in clutter at the moment. I really wanted to set up my whole new desk. I think I spoke about that months ago. I really wanted to buy a new desk and get myself really set up properly. I do everything on a single monitor at the moment. Darryl uses 3. So I have a spare monitor, but I just don't really have anywhere to set it up. And it would be really handy with a lot of this D&D stuff to have that second monitor. But, that's the way it is. So we're still working through all of that. I'm really sick of the smell of cat litter. It's unavoidable at the moment with the cats all in the cages, but it's really bugging me. And if it rains quite badly, we'll have to close the house up, and that's going to be even worse, but that's fine. It is what it is, and that's what we signed up for and all that. I got asked about gardens a lot, so some new people came in from the grocery haul and stuff and mentioned about growing stuff. So the gardens are basically just non-existent. I really was hoping to get some autumn crops in, some brassicas and things like that, but we didn't get the covers done. And without the covers, it's pointless because we have cabbage moth galore. So we've got this big list of things that we need to get done over winter. There is some extensions to the chicken pens that need doing. We've put posts in the ground, but we haven't gotten any further in than that there. But we also need to build the covers for at least half a dozen of the beds so that we can attempt again to get some veggies grown. It doesn't have to be anything extreme, but to get some growing. The fruit trees are still alive. I know I forget they're so out of the way. I just don't walk out that way very often. And the gate to that side of where the orchard is broken. So you have to walk all the way around at the moment. So other than checking the grey waters working every now and again, I just don't go out there very often, and I rarely have a camera with me, but I do need to update you guys on it. But the fruit trees are still going. They're just really, really slow, and hopefully, even though they've been really slow, at some point they'll hit their stride and we'll get fruit from them. That would be really nice, but we will see. They are watered well because they run through our grey water system, though our grey water system does need an upgrade. So it was a long time ago we built a filtration system using a bathtub, using baffles and different size gravel and things like that. But the problem is that it's filled up with gunk because the washing machine goes through it, the shower goes through it. And as we all know, there's, skin cells and there's lint and all sorts of things that go through those waters. And so the the stones are really gummed up and need cleaning. But the thing is that we didn't really think about it at the time, because it's the bathtub's sunk in the ground and then the gravel's in the bathtub. So removing the gravel will be a really big job, may not even be particularly feasible because it's really compacted. It's always wet because the water sits in the baffles to filter before it goes out. So I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do that, or whether that grey water system can't be cleaned and we need to start a different one. We would like to buy a proper one. They're just really expensive, so we didn't. But it would be at some point nice to buy a decent one that works more effectively. Ours works fine. We have the pipe goes to the bathtub filters through the baffles and the gravel, and it goes into a pit, and the pit has a submersible pump that has a float on it. When the water hits a certain level, the float kicks in, the pump kicks in, and the water gets pumped out to drip line over the orchard. And then when the water drops to a certain level, the pump turns off. So it works. The problem is that it's not filtered as well as it could be. So sometimes we have some issues with the drip line getting gummed up. We tried 4mm pipes, open-ended pipes at one point rather than drippers, and that worked until it didn't. Like, there's just too big of particles. So we need to reduce the particles that are going through the grey water, and the system that we're currently using just isn't able to do that. So we're still working on that, but it is still getting to the orchard, and that's the main thing. It just means that we sometimes have to go out and cut new holes in pipes and stuff like that to make sure that it's getting where it needs to go. But it is getting there. Anyway, went off on a bit of a tangent there. The boys came out, the twins are having breakfast. So what I might do is, while the bread's still proofing, I'm going to cut up the pork so that I can mince it if I get the opportunity to. If not, it can always go in jars to be canned, or just frozen in chunks, and we'll use it in that way. Regardless, it needs to be done. And I did have a look, and I've already got breakfast sausage seasoning mixed up on the shelf, so I don't have to mix any of that up today, so it should be a nice quick job anyway. So I have one of the Costco roasts, and I'm just going to take the skin off it and then cut it into chunks suitable for the canner. For the mincer is the plan. So I might have to give my knife a quick sharpen. So yes, what else was there while I was discussing that? Give me a sec, I'll sharpen my knife. So yeah, I was going off on a tangent about the grey water. That was because we were discussing the things for winter. So the chicken pens, the grey water, the gardens. That's where we were at, wasn't it? The gardens. So the gardens have been a bit of a write-off. Darryl's going to help me make the rest of the covers over winter for next season's growing, hopefully, and that will work better. Boys needed me, so I'm interrupted again, lost. I was talking about the covers for the garden beds. We have the IBC wicking beds as well that we plan to create some covers for as well. We're still working on the design of that. But we also are hoping to set up some hydroponics as well over the winter in a secure, like covered with insect netting and stuff as well. And then that way we'll have multiple options for trying to grow a variety of things. Even if I only manage to grow greens, then that's, some tomatoes would be nice, because fresh tomatoes from the garden are always awesome. But if I can get some lettuce and some spinach and some, depending on the weather, we have kale in the cooler weather, maybe some sprouting broccoli, and that sort of thing that I can cut and come again, then that would be ideal. So we're still working on all of that. So yes, for those who are asking about the gardens, we do have extensive gardens, and we've had some fantastic seasons. Some seasons where I have grown 200 tomato plants, and we haven't had to buy a single tomato, and hadn't had to buy a single zucchini and things like that. And then this year and last year have just been write-offs. Part of it's timing, I'm sure. Like, part of it is that I just not as much time to put into it, partly because YouTube takes more time, but also because, like with the D&D work and that, we only get paid for what we work. So we take on more work, which means more hours. So I'm also doing all the food and 3 videos a week and the D&D, you know, converting, as well as all the stuff with the kids. And so it ends up taking a lot of time. Another child. There's only 2 home and I'm still getting interrupted, you know, regularly. Yes, I don't know where I was at. I think I was just saying that some years I've had some absolutely gorgeous, fantastic gardens, others I haven't. Part of it is water. We really need to figure out our water supply for the garden. It tends to go on the back burner because water to the animals and the humans is more important, and then we don't always end up with enough water for the gardens, and we have to go and fetch it to water the gardens, and then it gets delayed and all that sort of thing. So water, time, and just we've had a lot of pest issues, so the gardens just haven't done as well as I would like in the last couple of years, but it is something we want to work towards. What else? I had that discussion and then just talked to you guys in the comments about grocery periods. I think this one will be a 10-week one because there's just nothing I can do about it. That's how it worked into the budget and the public holidays and everything else. But I think from that point forward, hopefully I can make it a not too big a shop after that 10 weeks, and we can rejig the budget and we can go every 4 to 6. I'll figure out timing based on the food hampers and money pays and things like that, and what's convenient. But yeah, I think I'll bring them a bit closer together in the hopes that we can have a little bit more fresh fruit and veg as well. I think that's the big thing for me, especially eating the lower carb, is that Darryl's quite happy to just eat steak every night or some sort of meat, but for me it just doesn't feel like a full meal unless it's got veggies and stuff with it. So I'm happy to eat frozen veggies, and I do, but it's so much nicer to have fresh stuff. So yeah, so that's what I think I've decided after all the discussions. I won't stick to I think it'll vary depending on the time of the year, what else is going on and all that sort of thing, as to whether it'll be 4, 6-ish weeks, but bring it back down to that rather than the 8 to 10, just to see how we go again. Now, part of the, doing the 8 to 10 weekly shops part of it was less wear and tear on the car, less cost of fuel and all that, and that will kick up with the doing them more often, but should be compensated by the income from YouTube. But the other thing was that as much as I'm not a prepper and I'm not a anything like that, the idea was being able to have more time away from having to go into Brisbane and that, because what happens if I can't get there? Now, that's all good in theory, except that because we've only been doing the 8 to 10 week grocery hauls, and because money is what it is, we actually have ended up with less surplus or less stockpile or less extras. I've always said that I like to have the enough that if we couldn't go shopping, so if we couldn't shop every 8 to 10 weeks, then I would have enough to get me through another 8 to 10 week period, and I don't. So what ends up happening is we end up going through pretty much everything in that 8 to 10 week period, which means that we've got no surplus. So if something happens and we can't shop at the end of that 8 to 10 week, then we struggle a little bit. We still have food. We always have food, but not how I'd like to continue on. We would manage. We can always process a couple of our own chooks and stuff too, if that's what it came to. But it would be nice to get a little bit extra going again, rather than using it down to nothing every shopping period. And the only way to do that will be to bring the shops a bit closer together and then buy a little bit extra and get a bit of a supply. Now, the other thing is, though, that we don't really have storage options for that. Our storage of our food, we have about the capacity to store sort of 8 to 10 weeks worth of food, because that's what we do, but it's not ideal storage, but it is better over winter than summer. So there is that, because it's winter, it's cooler. But I would like to get more things canned on the shelf too. My shelves are very bare at the moment because I just haven't been able to buy any extras to go on the shelf. So like these pork roasts that I'm cutting up now, these can up really nicely in jars. All you do is you cut them into chunks, place them in a jar with a bit of salt, and just can them as is. And then when you are ready to consume them, when you pull them out of the jar, they're pulled pork. Just unseasoned pulled pork, and we add whatever we want to add to them and use them however we want. But lately, I've been using all of it just in meals. I haven't had extra to put on the shelf. And so it's, yeah, like it'd be nice to get back to a point where I'm actually filling the shelf up with items as well, which will mean spending a bit more, but more often. Does that make sense? So yeah, I don't know. I think I definitely will trial after this grocery period doing the next one a bit closer together and see how we go. I see what I spend and see the comparison of what I'm spending to previously and then go from there. So yeah, so I've cut all this pork up. You can see that there. So all the pork is cut up. I've got the rind here. I'm not going to do any potatoes today because we only just had potatoes the other day that were used, but I'm going to freeze that and I can do that rind over potatoes another day. But all this is done. So I'm actually going to grab 2 bowls and separate it into bowls for the fridge, keep it chilled before I mince it, because this dough's nearly ready to go. So I won't pull the mincer out just now. I might wait till Darryl gets home because it's always easier with 2 people to mince the pork. But what I might do is grab out a second bowl, split it, and I might season it now, stick it in the fridge, and then mince it when Darryl gets home. So same size bowl, I should be able to split it into 2. Get a bag for the rind to go into, and then this roast was 6.7, so say 6.4 maybe after the rind. I'll weigh the rind. Scales. I have to wash these ones now. I've handled them. A bit less than, so we've got 720 grams worth of rind, so we've got about 6 kilos, so 3 kilos each. So what we're going to do is put, yeah, about 3 kilos. Let me wash my hands. Right, so we've got 3, where did I put the jar of here, seasoning? So we're going to go with we have a look at we might go with 100 grams, 3, we want 30, 60, 90 grams I'm going to go with of the mixed seasoning per 3 kilos. So we got 90 grams of that. So this is my breakfast sausage mix, which has flaked salt, paprika, thyme, garlic, onion, mustard powder, brown sugar. I have made it on the channel a few times, and I think I might have it on the website actually, the sausage mix seasoning. And we like this. I find it versatile for a lot of things, not just sausage patties, so which is why I've seasoned both bowls, because even if we don't use it all for sausage patties, I'll use the mince in other things, and I'm happy to have that seasoning on it, because it's got all the similar flavors that I use for a lot of other things, slightly sage, plenty of sage, which is not something I use in my standard, but other than that, most of the other seasonings are the same. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this through. I'm going to find the lids for these bowls, and then I am going to stick this in the bottom of the fridge to stay chilled, and then I will probably clean up my bench so that I can shape the English muffins. Now, is there anything else that I needed to chat to you about? I can't think of anything else, but I never really remember. So I need to remember to get footage of the cats on the way inside. And yeah, I think that's it. Let me wash my hands again. As per usual, I have no idea of half the stuff that I've rambled about or how long this video is going to end up being or whether I covered everything I was supposed to, because that's not my forte on these Sunday chats. They are just a word vomit. Lovely saying, isn't it? But that's pretty much it. Trying to remember the things. I really should write myself some notes and I forget. So anyway, I think that's it. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll probably put some footage in of shaping the English muffins and stuff as I normally do, because I can edit all this and then add it on at the end. Probably won't have photos or footage of any finished products at the end of this one though, because I like to get these videos out sort of lunchtime at the max on Sundays. So we will see how we go. But anyway, that's it for me, and thank you for listening to my ramblings. And as per usual, any questions, put them in the comments. I do try really hard to answer them. I do find that I answer a whole bunch for the first few hours when a video comes out, and then I slowly pick through them later as I can. But the initial influx, I do definitely try really hard to answer. So any feedback, questions, anything like that, please feel free, and I will see you guys on the next video. And if there's any updates on weather and stuff, I'll try and do some updates on Instagram and Facebook. That is something else that I really need to figure out adding stuff to, but one of many things. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.